Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is John, and I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Ridge. When I was growing up, the day after Christmas always felt weird. Like, on one hand, there's all this new stuff that I got to play with, and having three brothers meant I got to play with all their stuff too, so jackpot. But there's also this, like, strange emotional crash that would happen. Like, the biggest, the best day of the year. I had been building up in my mind, all that, and it's just happened. And so now the lights on the tree are off, and there's this like weird sense of loss that hits you. You know, it's this loss that hits when something you've been looking forward to is over. Kind of like the show hole that appears when you finish that series finale of your favorite TV show and you're wondering, okay, what's next? And the mind games also start right after Christmas. Like there is no point further from next Christmas than the day after Christmas. And after Christmas, sometimes there's this temptation to think about the gifts that you didn't get. It's a weird day for any kid that loves Christmas. And I think as adults, we have a residual part of this that still affects us. But we also have this weird combination of other feelings. Like there's a tiredness because of all the extra traveling and shopping. There's this exhaustion of trying to make the deadline of getting everything bought and wrapped and under the tree all in time. And there's this relief after trying to juggle family visits and expectations. There's this worry about how much you spent or you didn't have to spend on gifts. And for some of you, Christmas is a period of mourning and grief because of the memories that come back up. And maybe at some point during all this, you think about how Christmas is about Jesus coming into the world as a little baby. And you think, well, wait a minute. He was supposed to bring peace on earth. And all these emotions and situations don't exactly fit into the narrative of Jesus bringing peace. In fact, it might seem like his arrival, celebrating him, is anything but peaceful. I mean, if he promised to bring peace, he doesn't seem to have lived up to it. Or maybe Jesus just brings a different peace than from what you're expecting. And maybe it's a type of peace that will help you, not just around the holidays, but all year long. That's what I want to talk to you about today. How can you experience the peace of God? So we're going to look at a few things that Jesus says about peace that give us an idea. To start, let's get a real picture of the type of peace that Jesus offers. This is the first step. See, we need to recognize the peace he offers and the peace he doesn't. When Jesus was talking to his disciples about conflict that occurs when you follow him, this is what he said. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. And maybe you're thinking, wait, what? That's not the image of Jesus that comes to mind. I thought Jesus was going to remove all conflict, and that peace is just what parents long for when their kids are fighting in the back seat. Silence. Sweet silence, no arguing. But Jesus actually tells us that conflict will still be there when you follow him. Now, out of context and by itself, this verse could mean some pretty aggressive things. And so know that it's specifically talking about the way Jesus and us as his followers fight against the actions, lies, and influence of the devil, as well as our own sin. But it still shows us that we will have conflict. So, peace from God cannot mean the absence of conflict. And yet, Jesus describes himself as being one to guide our feet into the path of peace. And during one of his last interactions with his disciples, Jesus tells them something that's also a promise for us. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. So rest assured, Jesus wants to give you peace. But it's not necessarily from external sources. Instead, it's often from troubled hearts and fear. See, Jesus doesn't offer peace from conflict, but he offers peace as you go through it with him. And the with him is key. We can't experience the peace of God without God. And so step 2 is to make peace with God. When the angels came down from heaven to announce the arrival of Jesus, they sang something. And this is what they sang. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men on whom his favor rests. On whom his favor rests, with those he is pleased, with those who he is pleased. It might be easy to get stuck on that line because it can sound a little performance-based, like if you do good enough, then God gives you peace. But when we put that together with other parts of the Bible, it gives us a grander picture of what that means. See, Hebrews 11:6 says this, "And we know that without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Peace with God is relational. It's faith in who he is and what Jesus did. The whole reason that Jesus came to earth, the number one source of peace that he brings, is a restored relationship with God. So if you don't feel like you have a relationship with God, I want to invite you to check out or visit the website you see on the screen. It will answer some questions that you have, and it will help you form a relationship with Jesus. And now once you have a better idea of what peace with God looks like and your relationship with him is restored, it's time to let that relationship flow into the other areas of your life. And that's when you begin to experience that contentment that you long for, and that settling of that feeling in your gut that's uneasy. And the way we experience that is through something called Shalom. See, so Shalom is a Hebrew word used throughout Jewish culture and the Bible, and its simplest meaning is peace. But a fuller understanding of it is including this idea of welfare and wholeness coming from this love and loyalty with God. It's this picture of being fully complete and well in our souls, in our minds, and in our bodies. So the next step to experience the peace of God is to rest in Shalom. Now, how do we do that? How do we rest in Shalom? Well, listen to what the author Paul, a close follower of Jesus, wrote. "The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." So, hey, remember that God is close to you. So bring up all the external sources, the conflict that is giving you anxiety and unease, and go and talk to God about them. And then you get Shalom. Now, the word petition in the original language describes this urgent request to meet a need, and it's almost exclusively used towards God. It has this strong implication of humility and the acknowledgement that our own power is not enough. It's handing over control of the situation to God. Now, this passage might seem like a little bit transactional at first glance, like do this for God and you get this. But it's more about the natural result that happens when we release our control of the situation. And why is that? Well, our desire for control actually causes a lot of the unease, the stress, the lack of peace that resides in us. I actually think that driving a car is a really great example of this. Now, I personally always prefer to drive, whether that's with friends, with my wife, with anyone. And part of that is because I do enjoy driving, but I think that there's also this fact that I like to be in control of the situation. Like, I like to be in control of the safety, the speed, the directions. I just like the being in control. And on a sunny summer day with like barely anyone on the freeway, it's great. Wonderful time to drive. But in late November, when it's pouring down this rain-snow mix and the windshield wipers are going on full and you have to go drive through downtown Chicago and you're like changing lanes, the emotions are very different than on a sunny summer day. But and you also think about like your passengers, they're chatting up with each other or they're singing to Spotify and they're experiencing very different feelings. They're experiencing freedom. In fact, I think about when the first time I experienced driving in the snow. And I was just so nervous because I had no idea what I was doing and the car was not responding like it should. I didn't know cars could move sideways like that. But when my dad was driving, my dad who grew up in a place that got tons of snow, I had peace because I knew he would handle it. And actually, I was even a little bit excited because I wanted to see what he's going to do. How is he going to get through the storm? And it's the same way with life. When we hold our control, when we experience the burden that comes with it, but when we give it to Jesus, we actually get freedom from the unease and the anxiety. We get Shalom. Now that means that we don't get to pick the speed, the route, even where we're going, really. If we're honest, sometimes we like to be backseat drivers. But the thing about backseat drivers is they experience all the anxiety and they don't even get to control anything. We don't need to be backseat drivers when we trust how God is driving. And for the record, this is a total life thing. It's not just like saying a prayer and being done. It's frequently reminding ourselves that we are giving the driving to God. We release that burden to Him. And we are trusting that His speed that He's doing things is the right speed. and that the way we behave and treat others on the road is going to be better. And that if we end up in a different place than we thought we would, then that was probably the place that we should have been going all along. So, as you head out into the new year and you put Christmas behind you, make it a priority to experience God's peace this year. Remember that the peace He brings, that the peace He gives, it's not from conflict, but through it. And that is only possible if you have a restored relationship with God. And then through that relationship, you give control to God. So, take some time to ask yourself, what am I anxious about? What am I trying to control that I need to give to God? And then invite God to take over. And when you do that, you get to experience shalom, the wholeness, the completeness with God, and the peace of God.